Discourse 42 Bible. Bible Discourse 42. Jesus performs the miracles of the loaves and the fishes and walks on the Sea of Galilee. At the time of Herod, the tetrarch of the fame Jesus, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do shew forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison and beheaded John in the prison. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it and went and told Jesus. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a deserted place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. Matthew 14, 1, 3, 1 to 3, 10, 12 to 13. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread that these they may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for thee, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There is a lad here which have 5 barley leaves and 2 small fishes. But what they say among so many? And Jesus said, Make me sit down. And now there was much grass in the place. So the man sat down in a number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto the disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing will last. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen miracles that Jesus had did, said, This is of a truth that prophet that should have come into the world. That should have come into the world. When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him a king, he departed again into a mountain himself alone. And when even was now come, his disciples went down unto the sea and gathered into a ship and went over the sea toward a Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Jesus was not to come then. And the sea arose by reason of a great wind that blew. So when they had rowed about 25 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking on the sea and drawing nigh unto the ship, and they were afraid. But he saith unto them, It is I, be not afraid. Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. John 6 1 to 21. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid we come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and beginning to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they were in the ship, came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all that country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they were might only touch the hem of his garment, and many as touched were made perfect whole. Matthew 14:28 to 36. Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. John 6:21. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples, and the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread, that these they may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for thee, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There is a lad here which hath 5 barley leaves, and 2 small fishes, but what they among so many? And Jesus said, Make men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were sat down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. John 6 1 to 13. Parallel reference. And the apostles, when they were returned and told him all that they had done, and he took them and went aside privately into a desert place belonging to the city called Bethsaida. And the people, when they knew it, followed him, and he received them, and spake unto them of the kingdom of God, and healed them that had need of healing, that had need of healing. And when the day began to wear away, then came the 12 and said unto him, Send the multitude away, that they may go into the towns and country round about, and lodge and get victuals, for we were here in a desert place. But he said unto them, Give ye them to eat. And they said, We have no more but 5 loaves and 2 fishes, except we should go and buy meat for all these people. For there were about 5,000 men. And he said to his disciples, Make them sit down by 50s in a company. And they did so, and made them all sit down. Then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them, and brake and gave to the disciples to set before the multitude. And they did eat, and were all filled, and there was taken up of fragments that remained to them 12 baskets. Luke 9:10 to 17. A meager 5 loaves and 2 fishes is humanly impossible to satisfy the hunger of 5,000 people. Masters can work with subtle forces from the astral and causal plane of creation. Jesus prophesied, Greater works than ye shall do. Jesus knew the law of cause and effect governs this earth. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he hath he that believeth on me, the works I shall do, the works I do, shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do. John 4:12. Scientific and spiritual knowledge will work with subtle laws in the inner cosmic consciousness. Jesus' phenomenal feats are beyond logic. They are incredible according to modern physics. What impresses our senses as a matter is really great concentration of energy into a comparatively small space. Einstein. Jesus gave metal suggestion and mass hypnosis to feed 5,000 people. By his magnetic energy, Jesus charged the members of the feast with magnetism and fed them. Advanced yogi can produce dreams consciously at will. God is feeding his children with his conscious dream only. Jesus had the power to condense his thoughts as mental images, as does an ordinary dreamer, but as material dream realities, even as God does. Jesus repeated his body after his crucifixion, so it is a simple thing for him to create few more loaves of bread. In instructing his disciples to collect the leftovers indicate his respect to food given by God as not to waste the food. In India, food is considered as prasad. Annam Parabrahma Swarupam. Food is the form of God and hence should not be wasted. Mind, meditation. Meditation will start with seed and ultimately it becomes seedless. That means you first meditate on God, merge with Him and become God yourself. Na tasya rogo, na jara, na mrityu, prapta, na mrityu praptasya yogagnimayam seriram. Yogagnimayam seriram. Shedding mortality, aging and disease, the person doing meditation shall be burning with yoga fire. Beatitude is obtained by people who do meditation and turn his mind inwards, not upwards. Bahunam janmanamante ಜ್ಞಾನವಾನ್ ಮಾಂ ಪ್ರಪದ್ಯಂತೆ ವಸುದೇವ ಸರ್ವಮಿತಿ ಸ ಮಹಾತ್ಮ ಸ ದುರ್ಲಭ ಗೀತಾ 7th Adhyaya 19th Sloka. One gains wisdom after several births. Then that man of wisdom realizes that everything is God only. Then he gets me. Such persons are real. Manohi द्विविधम प्रोक्तम शुद्धम अशुद्धमेव च. अशुद्धम काम संकल्पम, शुद्धम काम विवर्जितम. मन एव मनुष्याणां बंध मोक्ष कारण. Mind is of two types, fickle and stable. Stable mind is with no desires and hence happy. Fickle mind causes misery and unhappiness. That is why mind is the root cause of misery and liberty. Food and mind. Annam punsarchitam treta jayate jataragnina malam stavisto bhagasyat madhyamo मांसताम व्रजेत मनो कनिष्ठो भागस्यात् तस्मात् अन्नमयम मनः. The food we take is covered into three forms by the energy fire in the stomach. Number one, the solid part into excretions and urine. Number two, the semi-solid portions into blood, bones, marrow, and nerves, etc. of 7 elements. And three, the subtle portion becomes mind. Even if it is seen according to Panchikarana also, God enters through Pancha Mahabhutas, except that is ether, Akasha portion, Vayu portion that becomes mind, Agni fire portion that becomes intellect buddhi, water portion that becomes Chittam sphere of thinking, and finally earth Prithvi portion that becomes ego. Anumanta Visashita Niyamita Kraya Vikraya Samskartya cha Upahatta cha Khadakascha iti Ghadaka. The eater of the fish, frogs, birds and animals, etc., the young ones, the eggs, butcher, the one who supports the butcher for killing those dumb living beings, buyer, seller, the cook and the carrier are all sinners. If a tree is cut, then the new branches and leaves that come out will be of the tree only. God is described as Parama Dayalu, meaning magnanimity personified. He even protects his children by killing the demonic people like Hiranyakasipa, Hiranyaksha, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, etc. Is such a kind God shall encourage meat eating and also not the animals that are to be given for oblation, but our internal and external enemies like kama, desire, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, moha, delusion, and mada, pride, matcharya, envy, material attachments. These are the animals one has to sacrifice. Gomansa bhakshanam pranayama. गोमांसम भोजये नित्यम पिबेत अमरवारुणी तामहं कुलीनम अन्ये इतरे कुलघातका गोशब्दे नादिता जिह्वता तप्रसोहि तालूनि गोमांस भक्षणम तंतु महा पातक नाशनम हठयोग प्रदीपिका 347-48. The one who eats cow meat on daily basis and the ones who drinks the nectar that oozes out of moon are the highest class people. Rest all lowest class people. Go Shabda, cow, means tongue. To insert the folded tongue back into the gullet, khechari mudra or posture is called gomansa bhakshanam, that is eating cow meat. There will be feeling of sweetness in the throat while doing meditation on khechari mudra. This sweetness is called the nectar that oozes out of moon. Pranayama द्विशक्तेन प्रत्याहारश्च प्रकीर्तिताः. प्रत्याहार द्विशक्तेन द्विषट्केन जायते धारणा शुभा. धारणा द्वादशा प्रोक्ता ध्यानं ध्यान विशारदाः. ध्यान द्वादशाकेनैव समाधिम् अभिधीयते. 12 good pranayams shall provide pratyahara or make us unattached to senses. 144 good pranayamas shall provide dharana or concentration. 2736 good pranayamas shall provide samadhi or trance. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. That means we become what we repeatedly think. The life gets manifested as such. We cannot live out of the memory and call it life. If we are not driven by the vision of future, we get hijacked by the memory of the past, a kind of imprisonment. Our mind is 99.9% is a memory of the past. There are two aspects about changing the mind and changing life for better. First, getting right input, wisdom, and then programming it into the mind. If we want to change and enrich into life, wisdom is gnana based on the spiritual truth. Meditation or sadhana is reprogramming the mind, and the rest is a natural manifestation into life of peace and happiness, which we are seeking eternally. The prayer, Heavenly Father, teach us to realize that we live by Thy consciousness, that birthless and deathless, we are waves of Thine immortal energy and immutable consciousness. Then those men, they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said this is of a truth, that prophet that should have come into the world. When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him a king, he departed again into a mountain himself alone. John 6:14-15, parallel reference. And straightway Jesus constrained in his constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up to a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. Matthew 14:22 to 23. The prophet that should come into the world was references to Moses' foretelling in Deuteronomy 18:15. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me, unto him ye shall be hearkened. Many of the Jewish, many of the Jewish expected the coming prophet or Messiah would be ruler of royal house of David, but Jesus had no wish. He wanted the one with the God. He departed again into a mountain himself alone. And when even was now come, his disciples went down unto the sea and entered into a ship and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Jesus was not come to them. And the sea arose by reason of great wind that blew. So when they had rowed about 520 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking on the sea and drawing nigh unto the ship. And they were afraid. But he saith unto them, It is I, be not afraid. Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. John 6:16-21. Parallel reference. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. They were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear, but straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. Matthew 14:24-27. Be not fearful, but elated that you are able to witness this miracle of God working through me, that I, not as a spirit, but with my solid natural body, can walk through this rough sea and speak to you with the voice you know well. With this miracle, people can understand Jesus' mastery over matter and its relation to consciousness. Man's mortal form is not limited to solid flesh and bone. His body is of astral and causal forms as well. It is made up of life-tron and ultimately of thought-tron sparks of consciousness. The energy in any particle of matter is equal to mass or weight multiplied by the square of the velocity of light. Einstein. Masters and yogis can materialize or dematerialize their bodies. They can move their bodies with the velocity of light, that is 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. The yogi, with his sadhana, can make himself equate with the consciousness of God. His body no longer shall be subjected to time and space. At death, mind and consciousness with the body disintegrates. Yogi can disintegrate his mind and consciousness with the body while he was alive. Jesus, with his will at his command, could disintegrate the mind and body. Jesus, at will, he changed the specific gravity of his body, and he could float on the sea and walk. Kriya Yoga practice brings a regulated continuous inflow of oxygen into the body. The atoms by pranayama are transmuted into life force. They will in turn awaken the chakras. After years of successful practice, the Kriya Yogi is spiritualized so much so that he can hardly feel that the feet touch the ground. The body gets a levitating effect. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be if it be thou, bid me come unto the sea, unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when the Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the word ceased. Then they were in the ship, came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesareth. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all that country round about, and brought unto him in that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and many as touched were made perfect whole. Matthew 14:28 to 36. Peter was momentarily turned to Christ consciousness, but his faith was disturbed due to violent winds, and he was filled with fear. Jesus touched him and restored his faith. Jesus scolded him, O Peter, why did you diminish your Christ consciousness with doubt? You must be firm. Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha, sukeshu vigata vigatasprihaha, वीतराग भयक्रोध स्थितैर मुनिरुच्यते. Gita, 2nd Adhyaya, 56 Sloka. He whose consciousness is not shaken by anxiety, under afflictions, nor by attachment to happiness, under favorable circumstances, he who is liberated from worldly love, fear and anger, he is called Sthita Prajna. Faith means one should have absolute faith of knowing the soul intuitively. Faith means not mental belief which will evaporate at the slightest contact with contrary evidence. Bodily consciousness will evaporate in sleep. In meditation, the delusion of body is consciously removed. In samadhi or ecstasy, deeper states of consciousness are achieved. The devotee acquires real faith. End of discourse.